Good morning. My name is Anthea Perkinson. I am a certified financial planner and enrolled agent and the Director of Content Development for Money Made Simple. Money Made Simple is a nonprofit dedicated to financial literacy education. Money Made Simple is currently in residence at PSS Circle of Care and an event provider for PSS Life University. We have been conducting financial education in most of the retirement centers with plans to expand to do our Money Made Simple course in all of them. Today we're going to talk about identity theft, what it is, how to prevent it, how to spot it, and how to fix it. Identity theft is intimately related to credit scores, credit reports, because the most common forms of identity theft use the victim's good credit to steal. We're familiar with PSS. I have a couple of introductory slides here that we include in all of our public presentations to make sure that everybody is aware of the services and history of this great organization. Today's agenda, we're going to talk about what identity theft is. We're going to review credit report basics to understand how information is reported on credit reports and how important it is to correct any mistakes that you find on your credit report. We'll talk about how your credit report and your score are related. They are distinct, but they are related. How to fix mistakes on your credit report, how to deal with identity theft if you find it, and how to access your free credit report. At the end of today's presentation, we're going to walk through the steps so that you can download your actual credit report and look at it, hopefully find no evidence of any identity theft. But if you do have problems, we'll be standing by to help you identify those and go through the process of correcting them, usually online. What is identity theft? It is basically the wrongful use of another person's information, usually to obtain products, services, and other financial benefits. This is the most common definition of identity theft. Somebody opens up a credit card in your name, runs up a bunch of bills, and abandons them. That's identity theft. But it can be more dramatic than that. I have actually encountered individuals who have discovered that somebody had actually taken out a mortgage in their name, which is pretty significant. That's a major financial commitment and rather shocking to discover on a credit report. Typically, identity theft happens through the careless disposal of personal records, and the most obvious sources are anything that has personal identifying and account number information. So think of bank statements, hospital invoices, detailed medical records, anything that might have your address, date of birth, account number, social security number is a problem. Anything that is printed should be shredded before discarding. Other sources of your personal information that is used for identity theft include email phishing, and that's when you get an email that looks like it's coming from your bank or insurance company, but in fact is from a fraudulent entity looking to capture your personal data. Telephone spoofing, which is somebody calling saying they're from your bank, your insurance company, your investment firm, and they're looking for you to confirm your social security number and other personal information. They take that information, often it's sold, and it is used to create fake replicas of your identity for applying for credit cards and loans and other items sold on credit. Stolen wallets, when you consider what most of us have in our wallets, getting hold of your New York driver's license is a big deal because on it is your home address, your date of birth, your license number. You can aggregate information and create a new identity based on that information. So stolen wallets can often lead to identity theft. And computer malware, which is you click on something you shouldn't click on in an email from an unfamiliar person. A virus is downloaded into your computer and it captures things like your login and password for online banking, for example. So all of these we have to be careful about to protect our personal information. Credit report basics. The reason we go here, apart from the fact that identity thieves are looking to steal your good credit to get services for themselves, to steal. Credit reports are usually the first place that people find out they've been a victim of identity theft. Credit reports are generated by three main bureaus: Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. These companies are in the business of aggregating data on individuals' credit use, how we spend, what credit cards we have, how well we pay our bills, whether we have mortgages, car loans, student loans, etc. This information is sold to issuers of credit, not our personal details necessarily, but mailing lists for banks, mortgage lenders, card companies, etc., to send us offers for new forms of credit. They also respond to credit background checks outside the state of New York for employment. It's no longer done in New York. To secure a loan and to confirm the identity of individuals. For example, if you were to call the Social Security Administration or the New York Healthcare Exchange, they will ask you a series of questions, and they use TransUnion to identify you as you before they give you very confidential information. On your credit report, a lot of very sensitive information, personal identifying information, your full name, your date of birth, your Social Security number, your employment history, if you have provided it, whether you own your home, and the past addresses where you have lived. Your payment history on each creditor account, whether this is a credit card or a loan, how much credit you have, whether you've made any late payments within the last 7 years. Inquiries. If a creditor wants to extend a loan or a card to you and they do a check of your credit, that will be on your report for a year. Public records, if you have gone through bankruptcy, a foreclosure, or a judgment, that will stay on your record for a period of time. And we'll talk about in later slides how long typical information stays on. Credit reports and credit scores. Think of a credit score as more or less a grade for the information that is on excuse me, your credit report. Back in the 70s, Fair Isaac Corporation determined that they could make predictions about how well people would pay their mortgage by looking at the information on their credit report and using computer analysis, what's called regression analysis, to forecast future behavior. This generated the whole industry of credit scoring. There are now 16 different types of credit scores, so not everybody uses FICO, although that is still the standard used for mortgage companies. So how do they come up with a credit score? Here is the percentage breakdowns for what comprises your actual credit score. And to get your credit score, you don't look at your credit report because this is produced by separate companies. The best way to get it typically is from your bank. Most banks, the largest commercial banks, offer this as a service. Check your FICO credit score. It's become just something that is offered as a service. You probably don't have to pay to get a look at your credit score. If you bank with Bank of America, Chase, USAA, Capital One, and Discover, all of them will give you your FICO score. So here's the breakdown. The largest part of your score is presented by your payment history. How well have you paid your bills over time? That's worth 35% weight on your score. So if you are somebody who has consistently paid their credit card and their mortgage and any loan bills on time in full, no late fees, no defaults, that's a very strong component of your overall score. The next largest segment of your credit score is the amount owed. And this is fairly interesting. If you max out your credit limit, even if you pay your card off every month, this will weigh down your credit score. What we're talking about is referred to as the credit utilization ratio. And then in the next slide, we're going to talk a little bit more about this because it's a not very well understood component of your overall credit score. The length of your credit history accounts for 15% of your score. This is why, on average, older Americans tend to have longer or higher credit scores. They've been at the game longer, paying bills consistently, and that can be very valuable over time. Related to the length of your credit history, applications for new credit. If you are somebody who goes shopping and on a repeated basis and fairly close together, accepts new credit card offers when you go into Macy's and they tell you at the register, we'll give you 15% off your bill if you get our new credit card today. If you do that consistently, those applications for new credit will have a slightly negative impact on your credit score. Now, granted, this is temporary, and in time, it all kind of levels out. What happens with the applications for new credit is you have a negative impact on the average age of your credit cards. So knowing, for example, that the length of your credit history is important, 15% of your score, if you keep adding new credit cards, say you've had a credit card for 10 years and now you have 2 that you just got yesterday, the average length of history on that card, the age of it, goes down dramatically, and that will have a temporary negative impact on your credit score. Your mix of credit, so the types of credit that you have, is worth 10%. Now, this is not to say that some forms of credit are better than others. It's just that in the world of credit scoring, having both revolving credit, meaning credit cards where the amount you owe can change every month, plus having installment loans, a payment that you make same amount every month, like a mortgage, a student loan, a car lease, having both is more robust. It's a more complex picture of who you are as a person using credit, and that can benefit you in your overall score. So, what if when you look at your credit report, you see some very outdated information? Stuff that should have rolled off already. Under Fair Credit Reporting laws on the national basis, most information will stay on your profile from 7 years from the date of the last activity. This means that if you had a credit card back in 2008, remember the financial collapse, and you ran into trouble keeping up with it, or you had a car lease, ran into trouble keeping up with it, after 7 years, by law, this information has to roll off your credit report. So if you see something that is outdated like this, consumer debt that is over 7 years old, you can request directly to have it simply removed from your credit report. This will obviously change your credit score for the better if this was a negative item on your credit profile. Now, one note before I move on to the next bullet. Positive information, for example, if you pay off a student loan, if you pay off a mortgage, that's a positive event. That stays on your credit report actually for 10 years, but it's not permanent. So it does happen over time that people who pay off their mortgage early find that after 10 years, that good news is sort of lost and is no longer improving their credit score. Liens and judgments, again, referring back to the financial collapse, when so many people ran into financial difficulties, ended up not being able to keep up with their property taxes, going through tax liens, judgments for non-payment of debt. That will stay on your profile for 7 years from the filing of the public record. Again, it's not forever. Chapter 7 bankruptcy stays on your profile from 10 years from the filing. And what I can tell you about bankruptcy, having worked with a number of clients who've gone through this or have gone through foreclosure, each year that this is on your report, the impact on your score decreases. So by the time you are 5 years past a bankruptcy, it's really not weighing on your score very much at all. And certainly by years, 2 or 3 remaining, it is you have a credit profile, presuming that you do a lot of things correctly, that it's going to look pretty average. Chapter 13 bankruptcy, which is where you have a repayment plan, that stays on your profile for 7 years. Now, in New York State, we have some fabulous consumer advocates. And they have resolved that paid collections or charge-offs, which would show up on your credit report, they can only remain there for 5 years. And again, this is just reflecting the fact that you can get into a situation, you can get into a dispute with a collection agency or a debt, and it seems only fair that after 5 years, this rolls off. Same thing with satisfied judgments, meaning that you're taken to court for non-payment of a debt. You're told you have to pay all of it or part of it, so it's settled. That too will stay on your report only for 5 years. So if you see something like that when we look at our reports later and it's older than 5 years, we'll talk about how you can have that removed. New York State has a 6-year statute of limitations on consumer debt. So 6 years after your last payment, the remaining debt can no longer be collected, and you can argue, you don't really have to argue, you can submit and have it removed from your repayment, from your report. But after 6 years, if you make a new payment or promise to make a new payment, the 6-year time period will start over. So, what if, when we pull down our credit reports, you discover cards that don't belong to you, car loans that don't belong to you, mortgages, tax liens on properties you don't own? If you are a victim, and all of these would suggest you have been, the first thing to do is to call one of the credit reporting companies to report that you're a victim of identity theft and request what's called a fraud alert be put on your credit report. Now, you don't have to call all 3 credit reporting agencies. By law, they are required to alert the other 2. Confirm that as you speak to them, that they are going to contact the other 2 companies, and you can pick which company you'd like to start with. I typically lean on Equifax, but if you prefer to call one of the other 2, that's fine as well. Equifax, since the data breach, has beefed up their data or their call center staff. It's still not perfect. You still have to do the phone tree to speak to a live representative, but they have become a bit more consumer friendly as a result of all the pressure from Congress. You're entitled to an entirely free 90-day fraud alert on your report if you've discovered any information that is not correct on your individual credit report. You can also call to renew it after 90 days, and I've been told that this is you're not being charged for this. What happens when you have a fraud alert put on your credit report? It means that issuers of credit have to take extra measures to confirm that you are you before issuing credit. This means, from a practical standpoint, because I did this once in the past, I put a fraud alert when I was concerned about particular activity on my report. If you walk up to a checkout counter and they offer you a discount for getting their new credit card, they're not going to be able to do that. They're going to not have access, and you will be declined. It means that they have to take these extra measures, including multiple forms of ID, etc., when you have a fraud alert. So it does offer a good measure of protection. If you find yourself in this situation, you've put the fraud alert in place, the next step is to go to a fairly new website set up by the federal government, identitytheft.gov. You can see it on the upper left, just below the title of the slide. This walks you through how to report and recover from identity theft. This information used to be available only on the Federal Trade Commission website, the ftc.gov. It still lives there, but it's harder to find there. So given that this is such a significant problem in the US and that billions of dollars are at stake, because that's how much is stolen through identity theft every year, they created this special website to make it very simple. What you do first is simply tell us what happened. So it's an interactive Q&A. You type in, I lost my wallet, and in my wallet were the following items: my driver's license, my medical card, my social security card. You should never have your social security card in your wallet, but in the event that you did, this is important to relay. Next, what they're going to do is to create a personal recovery plan. What is happening as you're entering this information is you are creating what's called an identity theft affidavit, a legal form where you have certified that this has happened to you, and you followed the instructions from the identitytheft.gov website to report this as a crime. And then they're going to tell you how to go to each of your issuers of credit, your current accounts. You want to alert your bank. You want to alert your insurance companies, both medical and life insurance, your investment companies, your car lease company, your mortgage company. They'll tell you what documents to provide. It's going to be your affidavit, proof of identity, to make sure that they put alerts on all of your accounts. Banks will typically want to say, if, for example, in your wallet you had your checkbook, they will want to give you a new checking account number. So you will be walked through this entire process. Having this as a tool makes it simpler than trying to do this on your own. Having the fraud alert means that there should be no new accounts added to your record. So you're just doing cleanup, and hopefully this is straightforward and not tremendously stressful. Okay, but it's a great website. The other place that I mentioned, ftc.gov, still worth a look. What you can find there that is very valuable, on their home page, they have a whole catalog of current scams. The Social Security telephone call scam, current IRS tax scams. And it's good to read about these to know and prevent yourself from being a victim. Okay. All right, so how do we prevent being a victim of identity theft? Number one, dispose of all records with your personal information by shredding. Cut up old credit cards and medical cards. They have your card numbers on it. They have your other identifying information. Just make sure that they can't fall into, a thief's hands. When you're asked for your social security number by service providers, offer the last 4 digits only. Medical providers are now being open to this. It used to be that they would insist on getting your full social security number, and now increasingly they're following this rule. Don't carry your social security card in your wallet. I've actually stopped people standing in line in shopping stores and told them that I teach classes on preventing identity theft and that they need to commit their social security number to memory and not walk around with it. It's too valuable a number. It links to too many accounts, and it's used so often to identify who you are that it's a dangerous thing to have out in the world. Make sure your antivirus software is current. This is annoying if you have a laptop or a computer where you have to keep this updated, but the risk, knowing that there are bots all over the world trying to access our computers all the time to try to capture things like our login information to financial accounts, our login information to our email accounts, because emails are often used as identifying information. So it's important that you keep the antivirus software current. You don't have a gap where you are vulnerable. You get an email from an unknown source, delete it. Don't click on it, because that's often how the malware gets downloaded into your computer. Anyone who calls you out of the blue and claiming to be from your bank, your investment company, or insurance carrier, call them back. And if you are suspicious, call the main number, and rather than the number that's left on your voice message. What's great today, most phones seem to have a caller identification system, so it'll tell you who's calling. Some of the spam calls are identified, but if you have any doubts, make sure simply to call them back on the number or the person that you're used to talking to. Okay. Here's how to obtain your free credit report. Some years ago, when the Fair Credit Reporting Act was passed in 2003, it was determined that if the credit bureaus are going to collect such extensive, sensitive information about all of us, that we had the right as consumers to obtain each of our credit reports from each of the three agencies one time per year for free. This is the only website where you can get your report for free. If you simply go directly to TransUnion, Equifax, or Experian, they will ask you to pay for it. You don't have to pay for it, provided you go to this website. It is exceedingly important that you type this website directly into your browser. And I've done a little screenshot to show you what that looks like. You see on my browser, that little lock symbol saying that it's secure. Annualcreditreport.com. Index action is simply something that gets added on. And this takes you directly to the annualcreditreport.com website. Do not ever type annualcreditreport.com into Google or Yahoo search or any other search engine. The last time I looked, there were 34 imposter websites that look almost exactly like annualcreditreport.com, and they're out to defraud you. If you click on one of these, they're going to ask you a lot of personal identifying information, and you're going to happily be typing in your full legal name, your date of birth, your social security number, your home address, your email address, and then they're going to ask you for a credit card number. The real legitimate site, you don't need a credit card number. What they're going to do if you're on one of these bad sites is hit you for a service fee, a monthly service fee, usually for some bogus credit monitoring product that you don't need and you shouldn't pay for. But they've also captured all of your information, which could be sold to credit identity theft thieves. So incredibly important that you get onto the right site. Once you're on this site, it looks like this. This is the home page. And obviously they talk here about why it is so important to check your credit report for signs of identity theft. And they talk about how your credit report can affect your mortgage rates, your credit card approvals, apartment lease requests, etc. And again, that's because of the relationship between your credit report and your credit score. And they talk about how you're eligible to get a free copy of your report every 12 months from each credit reporting company. Now, you don't need to get your credit report from all three at one time. You can start with one And I would recommend that you look first at Equifax because in my experience, it's been the easiest to read and to understand. If you find problems on Equifax, outdated information, accounts that don't belong to you, you can go through the fraud alert, you can correct it. And the way you do corrections is you go directly to the Equifax site, and they all now have an area for submitting corrections. So you enter the information that has to be researched, and it is legally their obligation to research it and let you know in 20 days whether or not that information is valid. They are also required to share these corrections with the 2 other companies. So what you can do after you've submitted your corrections to Equifax, the next quarter, so give it a few months, go in again, annualcreditreport.com through your browser, and request a report from Experian. Again, that's going to be free because you get 1 per year, and check that the bad information has also been removed here. This one should be clean. Okay, so that's a way to do this. When you get to this site, it's going to recommend that you get a free copy of your credit report. What's going to happen when you click on Equifax, that's the one you want to get, is it's going to take you to a screen that looks like the following. Here you are. They outline the 3 steps to get your free credit report. You're going to fill out a form to request 1, 2, or 3 credit reports. You'll click on the red box. It's going to tell you to pick the report that you want. And number 3, to request and review your reports online. It alerts you to the fact that before they'll give you access to your report, you're going to get a little quiz. The quiz is to make sure you are you and to weed out identity thieves who might have some of your personal information, but not all of it. And they certainly don't know who you've been dealing with, who your mortgage might be from, etc. So you're going to have to pass this little quiz. This is the step for each report. The next slide is a picture of this quiz. So you click on Equifax, if that's the report you want. You're taken to the Equifax website. This is a hyperlink, so you don't have to worry about not being on the correct site. But before Equifax is going to let you take a look at such a sensitive personal document, they're going to give you this little quiz. And all of it will relate to past and current credit accounts. Only you should know the answers to these questions. So for example, you read the first question, your credit file indicates you might have a retail card opened in around August 2016. Who is the credit provider for this account? So you're gonna have to think back in time. Back in 2016, I've never heard of Blue Stem Brands. Did I get a Macy's card? Yes or no? What about Sears? What about Target? If none of these apply, the right answer is none of the above. Next question. Credit file indicates you have a bank card opened February of 2014. Same process. Did you get a card at Cabela's, at Citigroup, at Nordstrom? Now, here's one of the tricks. You might actually have a Citibank card, but you have to remember, did you open it in 2014 or did you open it earlier or later? And then lastly, same thing. Now here is one of the reasons why it is important to make sure that all of the information on your credit report is accurate. If you have an unknown credit report, it could end up, or unknown credit account listed. I looked some random credit card, doesn't belong to you. It's inactive, so you think I cannot worry about it. It could show up as one of the answers in one of these identifying quizzes. Same thing, an employer you don't know. Same thing, an address you never lived at. It's why it's important to make sure that your information is accurate. The other thing that's true is every time you update your credit report and the information is current, you will see a little bump in your credit score, even for non-credit related updates. I had a client who updated some addresses where she never lived, and she saw her score go up just a couple of points not long afterward. So very important that you keep your information absolutely accurate so that you'll be able to pass this test when you go in to get your report. This is the end of my formal presentation. And what I'd like to do now is have any questions come through on the chat before we get started. And then in each of the centers, I understand that someone on staff is going to assist each of our attendees to access their credit report. You should be able to view it. You can download it. I do not recommend that you email it to yourself, simply because hard to know if Gmail and other email services are secure. If you have a thumb drive, you can download it onto the thumb drive, take it home, and delete the original copy. But even if you don't download it, you can review it online. And again, you're looking to make sure that the information you see is 100% accurate. If it is not, you're going to go to the Equifax website, assuming that that's the report you've looked at, and submit corrections. Okay. When you do the correction, in 20 days, you will get a mailing, and it will contain confirmation that the information was researched, corrected, and a new abbreviated paper copy of your credit report. Are there any questions at this time? Okay, it doesn't appear there are. I'm going to stand by and wait and see if anybody has a question as you go through the process of opening annualcreditreport.com, passing the identity confirmation quiz, and accessing your reports. Thank you. I wanted to share with everyone one question that has come through, which concerns what if you get to the questionnaire and you answer something incorrectly and are denied access to your report. You do have the option to back up, go back to annualcreditreport.com and select a different credit bureau. Try next, perhaps Experian. The questionnaires are going to be different by bureau, so hopefully you'll be able to answer all of those questions accurately and gain access to your individual credit report. If that's not possible, you have two options. One, there is a report for requesting your credit report by mail. Granted, when you print off this form, you're going to notice it asks a lot of personal identifying information, including your full Social Security number. And I believe one or two agencies ask you to include a copy of a identification form, whether a license or birth certificate, etc. A lot of people are very uncomfortable sending that through the U.S. mail, but you can always send it through express mail. Yes, this will cost you, I think the fee is $7, or you can send it return receipt so that it is securely transmitted, but that is a way that they will get and process your credit report request. What's happening is they can't prove you're you, and they do not want to provide your information to somebody they suspect could be an identity theft. So they have to take these other measures to prove that you're the person connected to this credit report. The other alternative, if you don't want to go the long way using the form in U.S. mail, is to call them, but wait times are really tough once you get through the phone tree. So that is the one downside of calling them in person to ask for help. If you have any other questions, please feel free to raise a hand, either send them through the website, the Zoom, or by email. I'm happy to follow up with anyone who has a question after the fact. But I want to thank you all for participating in today's identity theft presentation. I hope you have good news when you got hold of your credit report. Remember that once you log off the website, you will no longer have access to your credit report information. So you do need to download it and print it. If you download it, copy it onto a thumb drive to take home or print it on site, then delete it. Don't leave your credit report on the center's web computer. Thanks again for participating, and I look forward to hosting another live webinar sometime in the future. Have a good day.